Alright, so this is a Windows 2003 server. It's got 2 gigs of RAM, and it's got an Intel server motherboard. It's s3000ah, which has got an Intel Core 2 Duo E3420 at 2.133 gigahertz. It's got hot swap bays in the front. So we've got 6, even though the motherboard's only got 4 SATA ports, which I'll show later. We've got a IDE DVD drive and a floppy drive. Power reset, and then there's actually another reset inside here. 2 indicator lights for both a LANs, disk, and a warning. Flip it around to the back. So we've got our redundant power supply, which we pull up on the latch there, pull it out. It's got its own fan, and it slides into a backplane. We've got PS2 keyboard and mouse, VGA, DB9 serial, outputs for the status of boot are both our LANs there, 2 USB, I think they're 1.0, and another USB card, I think it's 1.0 as well. So to move this side, you press in on the button there, slide it, so then we can see we've got our CPU, a RAM, so for the hot swap bay, it's a full unit here that can be swapped out itself in case it goes bad. It's got fans that you can remove with no screws, so they can be swapped out while the system's running. At the back here, we've got I think a 240mm, which can also be swapped out with no screws. So I'm going to pop the front bezel off, pulling these 2 and then swinging it out like a door. And then unclips. So I'm just going to remove our data links, the SATA ports on the back plane here. And then we've got our 2 Molex power. And then when we press up on this, it'll actually eject the full unit. So we can take a closer look at it. So here's the cage for the SATA SAS drives. We've got our interfaces here. So this is a straight through interface, it's not a multiplex or anything. At the bottom, some female Molex, with just some caps there. The fan itself will run off of a 4-pin motherboard connector. And then at the front, each cage has screws for the hard drives, and then it slides into a track there. So here's an example of one populated with an older Western Digital drive, which has got our newer power and our older Molex power to be redundant. This drive was manufactured in March of 2007, so it's pretty old. Other than that, we can see our regular SATA SAS connectors at the back there. And other than that, it's just a dumb cage pretty much. So our DVD drive and floppy drive also are toolless. I'm just going to pull out the Molex power, and our ID ribbon cable, and then our floppy power. And its ribbon cable. And then by sliding this switch to the unlock position, I was going to slide this one to unlock, we can then slide out the floppy drive. So we've got our standard ID connection there in our floppy drive. Our ID connection and our jumpers there, and our Molex power. So at the front of the case, there's some ducting that comes out. This is also where the manufacturer put all the extra cables for the power supply. So now that all the cables are detangled, just take out these Phillips screws holding the power supply in place. So now we can take a closer look at our power supply, which is a HipPro or HiPro 610 watt. It's got 4 16 amp 12 volt outputs, and our 5 volt is at 30 amps, and there's also another 5 volt at 3 amps. Our 3.3 is 24 amps. And our negative 12 is like 0.3 amps. So the actual power supply itself outputs 54 amps on the 12 volt. And then it's actually this that creates our 3.3 and 5 volt rails. As you can see, the card edge connectors inside there, there's 2 of them to match up with the connectors here. So all that's really left is to take out this USB card and to disconnect the front I/O, which actually runs through this ribbon connector. The cards themselves are held in with screws, but they've also got a plastic retainer here that holds in the bracket. So to remove the retainer, there's a button you press in here and then it slides loose. Unscrew the screw holding the card into the bracket and gently slide it out. So it's a SIIG brand, version 2.0. Their PCI USB card. I've never seen that before. We've got almost what are like rivets that the board pushes over and snaps into place on. Our board's free now. So now we can take a closer look at the motherboard. So we've got our CPU with a stock heatsink. Our two DIMM slots, which maximum 8 gigs of RAM supported. Got our 4-pin power. Here's all our I/O we saw before. So it's Nichicon brand caps that they're using, and the power regulation. And a few other good quality caps around. None of them look bulged. Of course, they could still be bad. So our power and status lights at the front are run off a ribbon cable that comes up, but it actually goes to a small passive circuit board. So I'll take a look at that. So we've got our power, our normal reset, and the hidden reset that was behind the pinhole. We've got 4 different indicator lights here, our main power indicator. In the back we've just got our FC24P connector. There's also another 2-pin connector here, which was this red line which goes back to the back of the case where there's a tamper switch which detects if the case is open. And then we've all just got standard thread bit, or standard pitch there. And this is actually an Intel branded board. So this is that tamper switch that I was talking about. It's just a silent, momentary contact. So when the side of the case is pushed on, it's holding that button depressed. When you try and take the case off, that button would release. So you'd be able to have that trigger an alarm or a software setting.